the session, just so we have a feedback. So let me get started by asking who has any questions or any residual concerns from yesterday's session before we get into the case study.
So I believe Mamta has raised the hand. Mamta, you can unmute and ask.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mamta. Yes, please.
So thank you for the LinkedIn message. Well, I was
Sure, you're
going through
welcome.
the yeah, I was going through the case study, and while I was reading it, I saw that it said that there are different types of participatory action research, and the methodology that was used for this particular case study was inclusion research. So, did we cover yesterday what are the other types of participatory
Okay.
action research as well?
So it's a very wide area of study. Okay. You can use critical theory, you can use a phenomenological approach in a action research case study. You might wonder, how can you use a phenomenological approach within action research, because action research and phenomenology are two different aspects. When I say you can use the phenomenological approach, you can try to understand sometimes what will be happening in a participatory action research is there is a phenomena that is occurring, right, within that system that people have not been yet able to name or not name clearly. So when you do your interviews can be of a phenomenological nature, which have to do with not just what's happening within the system, but how they see, how they make sense of a certain phenomena. Let's say the phenomena is, I'm just giving you an example as for the yesterday's case study. Let's say the phenomena were marginalization of homeless women. Okay. So now they will start telling you this is what happens, and they don't treat us with respect, or they don't treat us with kindness. Okay. I've somebody even said I felt suicidal. Okay. I was so helpless, right? So while all of that is relevant to, is germane to the participatory action research, we also want to understand how they make sense of a certain phenomena. How do they make sense of the phenomena of marginalization? Today, this is a case study about homeless or underhoused women in Toronto. But it could be a case study around the transgender individuals. It could be a case study about the LGBTQ community in India, right? It could be a case study about the Dalit, right? Or the other marginalized, oppressed populations in India. So you want to know how they make sense of a certain phenomena. What is their lived experience of that phenomenon, right? So what I will do is, after the workshop, because I didn't want to inundate everybody, I didn't know what level each of you were in your journey with PAR. I suspect that most of you are new to the PAR approach. So I didn't want to crowd your minds with 10 different axiomatic theories that you can, there are plenty of theories. As a matter of fact, I will share with you all an ebook, an entire ebook on action research, from which I was able to take some of the ideas for the for our workshop. And and if you have the time to go through that, you can go through that and read how different approaches are used. So participatory action research is not a monolithic, right? It's not just one way of going about it. There are many different approaches that you can use within that. And the mastery lies in what kind of approach you feel is suitable for that. Sometimes critical theory is used, right? Sometimes you could have a problematic resolution theory. Sometimes you can have theories of conflict resolution, because there could be a conflict occurring within the system, right? So many different theories, many different models can be used. And there are as many you could think of theorists out there. that have done tremendous work in the area. So I didn't want to make it about theory. I wanted to keep the workshop very experiential. Okay. So again, I will send it to Samyak, and Samyak will be happy to share it with you. And by the way, just so all of you know, and of course, I know that I spoke with, or you and I had a chat on the LinkedIn, and we connected on LinkedIn, right? So uh, I just want this learning to continue. It's not that 2 days are ending and you paid the fee and you attended the workshop and it's all gone. Now you cannot access me and you cannot access my resources and all that. That is not true. That's not how I work. I'm open to you, and this is just our point of departure. We're getting to know one another, and as we learn together, we can grow together, right? And I'll be available to be of any help and support. So does that answer your question? So we will keep it for post the workshop. Is that okay? All right. Okay, great. All right. So anybody else who has any observation, any question, any concern about what we discussed yesterday? Any thought you want to share with everybody? What triggered in you? Was it new for you? Had you already visited action research as a methodology before? So I'd love to hear from you. Don't be shy. Okay, somebody has raised their hand. Mamta, you may
Some
want to put your hand down.
No, this is for the second question, but I
Oh,
will wait.
second. No, it's okay. I saw your hand going up because sometimes what happens is participants forget to put the hand down.
Yeah, I am aware.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, but
So,
somebody else was also asking a question, so I choose to wait.
okay, so who else was asking? Akhila, who was asking a question?
No, sir. Actually, I was just referring to Mamta, ma'am. Please, ma'am, continue.
Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So again, this comes because I missed the first portion. So my question here is, do we use any single blind or double blind technique while we are conducting research? At least not the double blind, but single blind technique is used or not used? The participants know who the researcher is. Would
Oh,
that
of
influence?
course, of course. But it's all by contract. You already signed a contract with the company that you're going in. You are the researcher, Mamata. You're going in. The participants are the employees or administrative staff or managers or leaders within the organization. You already contracted with them. So they know very clearly that Mamta, when I say Mamta, Mamta and her team, usually it's not just for a large organization, it's not just one researcher. You may have an assistant, you may have a co-researcher with you, because there's a lot of data that needs to get collected from there, right? And again, just remember, because you are participant observers, you're researching, but you're also observing um, the process, but participating in, you're drawing them in. They are going to be very much part of the research team. Remember that. So it's not
Yes.
that. So we have to take off the mantle of the expert. Usually what happens is we go into an organization, and it's not right or wrong, but consultants usually feel that they are the experts. And sometimes the organization also looks at you as an expert, which is okay, because you're more knowledgeable, more experienced, you're a practitioner, you go in, so they look up to you as you are going to fix it all. But the danger there is, and if you read the work of Edgar Schein on process consultation, and I'll be happy to share that work with you. He talks about the dangers of the consultant or the practitioner turning into an expert. So what you do is you create a dependency group. Everybody becomes dependent on you. Oh, I'm going to sit back and relax, and she's going to do Mamta is going to do the work. Why should I break my head on it? So that is not true of PAR. PAR, everybody's involved. You're all engaged in the process. And the key is for you, Mamta, and your team is to create that buy-in. And you create buy-in in people through a variety of ways. I don't have to go over all the ways, but one of the ways is if they feel that you're on the same page as them, that you're not out there to fix any problems. You're out there to seek their help, to co-create something that they will become stakeholders of. And that is what is the beauty of participatory action research when contrasted with simple action research. If you were Mamta's simple action researcher, you would be the expert. You would take the help of the participants, right? But they would not be involved in the research. In PAR, your participants are also doing the research. They are conducting. And remember in this case study, when we get into the case study, these homeless women were running the focus groups.
True, true,
Like
yeah.
I'm doing a transgender study. Okay. I told you about, 3 studies I'm doing. One of the studies is a transgender study. Now, how would it be if I went into a transgender study and I became the focus group person, leader, and I did everything myself while they're just sitting there answering my questions? Versus if I say to a transgender individual who's part of my research team, I want you to run this focus group. So you can imagine the buy-in that will come when somebody of their own community is doing that. They would feel more comfortable. They would feel more able to. So we want to create this equity and this feeling of equality within this. That is very important, and that's part of the social justice protocol. But that's a great point. So anybody else that has any questions? We have 11 or 12 people here, so I'm sure some of you have some questions or concerns or whatever.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, who is this?
This is Stuti.
Stuti, go ahead.
Yeah. So it could be the big that I'm thinking like this because of the case study, but in any case, whatever we've gone through so far, the focus has been on, social change or
Yes.
change of, in social practices, and therefore I've been thinking much more in terms of uh, work with minority groups.
Okay.
And as I was going through the material, I felt that the process itself is in some ways like an intervention because it is giving things to the participants which they are uh, asking for, things like inclusion or dignity or even knowledge and employment. And
Hmm.
even if it's a short term, I was thinking if it's fair to say that it is also a form of intervention, the process of this research itself.
Of course, that is a huge part of action research. The very fact that participatory action research has the word action in it should tell you something. You're taking action. It's an actionable enterprise. It's an actionable endeavor. If action is missing from participatory action research or action research in general, but what kind of research are you doing? The
Right,
idea of doing this, Stuti, is to go in way collaboratively with the notion of making interventions that are not your own, Stuti, that are a collaborative product,
right,
right? Because you're making an intervention by bringing these people into the fold. They're working with you. They are taking ownership of what it is. They're doing the research, actual research with you, shoulder to shoulder. So the interventions that are made, it's not just your name as the researcher on it, it's the names of everybody else. If you
right,
notice in the case study, and we will get into the case study in a minute, you will notice in the case study that all of those names were listed there, the women that
right,
were involved, right? the key stakeholders that were involved. So it's very
Right.
important to understand that action research is about action. It's not a silent, hands-off type of research mentality that you see
Right.
in positivism very often. So anybody else before we get into the case? Anything about yesterday that is remaining that you want me to quickly go over and cover? And I know that, so you don't have the, so I'll just move through the slides. If anything that you felt you wanted to cover in any of the slides, we can certainly go through those. um, let's see. So with this, we talked about social practice, social setting, practice, changing practice, right? And by the way, I'm okay if Samyak is okay, if Samyak and Aram are okay with sharing the PowerPoint with you. I'm okay with sharing it. Okay. There's nothing such so great. There's no trade secrets in this. All right. So if you wanted to get a copy of the PowerPoint, certainly ask Samyak, and I'd be happy to share with you. As a matter of general practice, I do share most of my PowerPoints when people attend my workshops. Because sometimes, we go through the material very quickly, and they say, "Oh, you were talking about social practice, but what slide was it in? What were we really discussing?" So that brings to life that. So feel free to do that. He'll make the determination on behalf of Your Dost Academy, if the PowerPoint can be shared with you. All right. But I hope you were able to. I'm not sure. Is Samak still here? Samak? Okay. Maybe he stepped away. But I,
Arhama is here.
huh?
Arhama is here. Sir,
Arama is here.
Arhama is here.
Arama? Arama, are you here with us? Okay, maybe she stepped away because they're also doing multiple projects for Your Dost. So I'd sent a link. It's an unlisted private video that I created for yesterday. Okay, the recording. I'm not sure if Samyak has sent the recording to you or not. Okay, but that recording is available. That link is only for. It's not a public share. It's only privately for the participants. In case you wanted to go through that, what was covered yesterday, right? In our workshop, a lot of nuggets came through in our workshop yesterday that we wanted to share. So quickly, going once, going twice, going final time. Anybody else want to say before we get into the case study? Anything you want to add? It's important because this is the time that we have together that we can go through some of the stuff. Okay, I guess not. So I'm going to go, I'm going to stop this share and I'm going to go into well, first of all, this is the case study that we were talking about. I'm sure all of you have that. Inclusion and homeless women in downtown East Toronto, Canada. Now, as you can, some of you might be wondering, okay, so we're all Indians, and why did I not bring a participatory action research case that wasn't for the Indian setting, right? So while there's a lot of action research type of work that has been done in India, I could not find something really very valuable from the standpoint of participatory action research in India. So therefore, I brought it. Was for no other reason. Okay, it wasn't because I have a Western bias. Okay, that was not why I brought this in. So, so this is going to be the study that we are going to be looking into: home inclusion and homeless women in downtown. Now, I am hoping that all of you, or at least most of you, have gone through the case study, at least visited the case study, seeing what we were talking about here. Okay. So I'm going to go with the premise that you've read, at least if not the entire case study, at least parts of the case study. Okay. All right. So let me go into my thing and open that case study. Okay, where is that posted? Zoom. Okay, let me just go into the case study. I know I have it here. Okay, here it is. All right. Can everybody see this? Can you see my screen, by the way? Oh, where did it go?
No, sir. We
You
can't.
cannot? Okay, just one
No.
second. You cannot minimize Zoom when you're recording this session. Okay. So how do I bring that from the back? Okay.
So you can
So
just click on the button share once you
yeah,
have it on
that's
the
what I was
screen.
trying to do. I was trying to do the share screen. Okay, where did that go? Share screen. Share. Yeah, I think I didn't click on the share button. That's why I
Started.
was doing. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. You know, sometimes I do so many of the hundreds and hundreds of these, and I sometimes forget to click the share button. Are bhai, how am I going to be able to share it if I don't click the share button? All right. So let me actually open this up here, and I'm trying to see if I can make it a little bit wider. Is that better? Can everybody see it? Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
you can read part of it. Okay, so now let's start with this. And first of all, my question would be, what is what was the purpose of this project called Count Us In? What was the purpose of this inclusion research?
There were many actually.
Okay, tell me a few.
One which the few which are already written in the key recommendations about how the things are already there, and we just have to see the people who are the policymakers have to just see the ground realities, and then they can draft the policies. That is
Hmm.
one. But then also the way I kind of saw this research, I found that it is also boosting the self-esteem in a very large way.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
actually makes the participants feel counted, feel
Hmm.
heard, and feel there are people who feel valued by
Right,
the policymakers.
right, right. But yes, that while that is true, what was the purpose? Or if you look at the executive summary, the first page, it is kind of like the abstract of an article, right? Or abstract of a dissertation, an abstract of a research paper, right? In the abstract, what do you capture? You capture what is the study about, what was the methodology used, what was the study design, who was interviewed, and what were the findings, correct? So if you look at this, if you look at this, it talks about, sorry about that, my alarm was ringing. So if you look at this, they are summarizing. Why do they say executive summary? They say executive summary because this report is being submitted collaboratively by the researcher, Mamta, your team, and the homeless women who came together in this project. And this is being submitted to the organizations that sponsored that, right? And there are few listed on that. And if you notice, the purpose has to be very clear in this.
Hmm.
Because the first thing somebody wants to read is, what was the purpose of the study? Why did you do this study? The study lasted 3 to 4 months. the organizations invested a lot of seed money in it. What was the purpose? What was the objective of the study? So if you notice here, and I'll hover my cursor here, the purpose of this project, count us in, was to investigate how health and social services in Toronto and in the province of Ontario can be made more inclusive. So right there, the person reading this study immediately knows that what the clear purpose of this study is. Was the study, okay, so I want to open up the forum here. It's a very important point here while talking about the purpose. If the purpose was only to investigate how health and social services in Toronto and province of Ontario function, is that action research? Anybody?
Yes.
Tell me. Is that participatory action research? Is it action research? Again, let me repeat my question. If the purpose of the project was to investigate how health and social services in Toronto and in the state of Ontario function, just that's where I stop.
No, then it is not an action.
Why is it not an action research, Mamta? If I just say, hey, I'm saying the purpose is we are going to investigate how they function. We are taking action on that, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
but
Sir,
why is it?
but there lack of planning, sir, is there?
Who's
Little
this?
bit of. Sir
Who is this?
Pragya.
Pragya?
Sir
So tell
Pragya.
me. So tell me, why would it not be? You're right. I'm not questioning that. Why is it? Why will it not be participatory action research if we just say the purpose was to investigate how health and social services in Toronto function?
So
just
because
to
we not
intervene.
have, we
Sorry.
didn't plan about like how we will execute it and how things will, I mean, how many people will involve in this with us. So I think this is the reason. Maybe I'm wrong.
Ladies, it
Dr.
is
Bell,
right
may I?
there.
Hello,
In the right,
hello,
it is.
sir.
Yes, who is this?
Sir, this is Nanika.
Yes, Nanika, tell me.
Sir, maybe I think it might be that because there was no intervention planned about how to solve the problem.
There you are. How do you? Okay, fine. You're
In this kind
investigating
of a
the
situation. Yeah,
problem, but what are you going to do about it?
yeah.
खाली खोटा रिसर्च
So
करना
there's
है.
no intervention.
इंटरवें खाली खोटा रिसर्च कर लिया जी. ओके जी, एक अच्छी सी रिपोर्ट 30-40 पेज की रिपोर्ट तैयार कर ली है. Right? Everybody is happy. Mamta's boss is happy. Pragya's boss is happy. Nanika, everybody going have a party. चलो भाई रिसर्च खत्म हो गया. अरे भाई रिसर्च तो खत्म कर लिया आपने. Data you've collected, but what are the interventions? So if you clearly note here that I'm reading it again, the purpose of this project was to investigate how health and social services in Toronto and Ontario can be made more inclusive and in turn promote the health and well-being of marginalized groups. See that is where it becomes action research. Otherwise, it is just an investigation, it's just a research project. There is no action required. The moment you bring in that intervention there, it separates from all other research methodologies. Please tell me one research methodology which has research and an intervention involved. I can't think of too many. See the beauty of action research? That is why it is so sustainable. It is so worthwhile to do this kind of research, because not only are you investigating what's going on, you're making interventions on how to change. Now, in ethnography, also to a point, when you're doing culture studies within an organization. You do make recommendations, but those are recommendations only. They are not interventions. Okay, so enough said about that. All right. The report summarizes what the women said. It's very, very important. Any actual research study that you're doing, if the study does not involve some verbatim extracts of what the participants said, what the researchers did, how they did it, it is meaningless, right? So, so share with me how some of the things, and I had made some notes of my own from the case study. But before I go into my notes, I wanted to understand from you what what was going on here. I mean, in a few words, tell me, yeah, we just read the purpose. How did they go about the purpose? So, okay, so it's one thing to say that this is the purpose of our study, right? And this is the intervention we did, but how did they go about it? Did they do in-depth interviews, semi-structured interviews? How did they go about it? If you read the case, you would know that the method that they used to go
So they
about
use
doing
focus group,
focus group. So let's, before we dive into focus
and
group,
they included,
let's
I
understand.
think, eight.
Yes. So tell me, what is a focus group? What is a focus
Homeless
group?
women. They took like
I
where
understand.
you give
No, no.
prompts. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what is a focus group? What
Sir,
is this
when we
thing called a
interview, sir, when we interview the group on which we are focusing on, like in this, we are focusing on the women. So we
Mhm.
will collect some women, we will make a group, and we will interview them accordingly.
So in this case, who were the ones interviewing the group?
So it was
Uh,
one.
yes, sir.
Who?
Sir, they selected eight participants who were inclusion researchers. They were homeless women
Mhm.
themselves. Like some, they trained them, and they made a
Right.
discussion. Focus group is mainly a discussion where you prompt, like you try to, in the like where you give certain prompts in the middle, like you
Mhm.
ask certain question and you steer a debate, not a debate, but a discussion.
Right.
And
Right.
try to get some viewpoints, and the focus was also on intersectionality of gender, like the focus was on
Yes.
how
Yes.
did they
Yes. Yes.
feel the treatment of how the social service officers how were they treated. That was mostly
Very
the focus.
nice. Very nice. Obviously you've read the report, and but tell me, who was the one who was leading the focus groups? Was it Mamta and her team? Was it the researchers team? Or was it the homeless women that were leading the research?
Maybe everyone worked as a team,
Yeah.
but homeless women, yeah, they were the one,
Okay.
they were the.
Let's read this. Can you see my cursor here? This little cursor? Can everybody see it?
Yes, sir.
This black little thing running around like a spider. So can you see this? It says homeless and underhoused women who live in downtown East Toronto led the research and were actively engaged in all stages of the project, not just one little thing that you do, interview them and collect the data and that's done. They facilitated 11 focus groups. They, meaning the homeless women. They were trained, of course, on how to run focus groups, but they were the ones that were doing it. Tell me, why was it so important to have the homeless women running this focus group?
So
Maybe
that they
because
will be relatable.
What's that?
So so that they will feel a connect. The women will be able to open up more about their experiences,
Correct.
and
Well,
they will be,
because you're giving them a place at the table.
yeah.
They are
they
there
have a
with
huge
you,
sense of marginalization.
right? They are. That is why it's called inclusion. We are including them. Not only we're not making them guinea pigs. So we ask them 10,000 questions, and they start answering this question. We collect the data. Yes, Mamta.
Also because they knew what questions to be asked. I mean, partly if there were not enough data coming in from the people,
Mhm.
they since they had already faced it, since they belong to the same cohort, they knew what
Right,
questions to be asked to get in more data.
right.
So that could also help. Like I being an outsider, I may not know which area needs to be probed in more and which area needs can be just dropped. It has given enough information, but person who is a cohort, person who is an insider knows exact information which is being withheld and which has been shared.
Very, very nice. Very nice. And that is excellent, Mamta. Because what happens is the moment you give them a seat at the table, the moment they feel, and it's not just you create a facade, you're not just for the sake of doing khali kota bitha diya, right? And then after that, who the hell are you, right? No, that's not it. It's a very inclusive, very loving process because you're bringing them into the thing. Believe me, there's a lot of feelings and emotions involved in this. They have so much to share. They're bubbling with all this stuff that they've been carrying inside them, right? The marginalization that is occurring. So you bring them in with the idea that you're going to make a change, that you're trying to make some intervention. That is the only reason they would get into it. For instance, if I'm doing a transgender study and I'm doing working with transgender women or transgender men, it can be both, right? Right? Women who were biologically born women but think of themselves as men, or vice versa, right? So if I were just doing with them and all I wanted to do was to collect data, they would not be interested in talking to me. What are you going to do with the data? What is in it for me? If I'm spending my time 90 minutes interview with you, or in a focus group, if we are going to be 2 or 3 focus groups and we are going to be talking about this, what is in it for me? How are you going to use the data to make a change? Now, can I make a change in the Modi government and say, okay, this is what you do? No, I cannot. But we write a study or actually publish research on that. Their cause is brought forward into the academic realm and into the practice realm so that people can get a feel for that, right? So it's important, really important to understand that the the lines between the researcher and the researched get very blurred in participatory action research. There are no two separate okay camps, like this is the researchers and this is the researched. Okay, their lines are very blurred. Okay, so and here are some of the organizations. So in your report has to mention the organizations that are sponsoring it. What do the organizations hope to gain from such research? What contributions are they going to be making to society or to the cause of the homeless women, right? Our way of working, and then it gives us, right? And it says very clearly, we used a particular kind of participatory research called inclusion research. Now, from those that read this study, tell me what they mean by inclusion research.
The beneficiaries were also included in the research, is it?
Yes, but what is the purpose? What is the purpose of this thing in called inclusion research? in this case study?
It has a purpose at every stage. It has a purpose of while understanding the nature of the problem, the magnitude of the problem, designing an intervention, administering the intervention, getting more buy-in, and at the end of the day, also designing the recommendations. So it has
Absolutely.
a
So the
thing at every stage.
inclusion is not just inclusion in the final outcome or inclusion in the final intervention. They are included as part of this process right from the get-go. As Mamta is saying, that every stage they are involved in. They're involved in the design, they're involved in the recruitment of participants, like because you have to recruit homeless women. Who are you going to recruit? Just anybody who's considers herself homeless? You guys all know that in a study, there has to be a selection criteria, right? We have to have a selection criteria to make it a purposive sample, right? So, so you have you have all of that contained in this study within the 33 pages that the study is about. You have this in the appendix. You'll see that. So inclusion research develops the skills and capacities of the inclusion researchers and allows them to express, to take action on their shared concerns. All their concerns that we're talking about are all shared. They all have somewhat similar concerns, right? And it's important to understand that this inclusion means you're including all of their concerns. You're not just saying, oh, your concern is bigger than her concern, or her concern is bigger than your concern. Some of them have been victimized in the focus group, as you will notice. They've been forced into prostitution to make money. Where are they going to get the money from? They have to pay the rent. And the street, living homeless, inevitably lands you into very risky and very dangerous behavior, such as drugs. And then they talk about why there's no enough rehab facilities. There are more for men, there's only one or two for women, right? So see, some of those disparities come into focus within the research. So it's a very in-depth way of looking at a situation, not just doing focus groups and collecting the data. How do you then make sense of the data is a critical aspect. So again, you are specifically talking about what is the definition of inclusion. A society where everyone belongs creates both the feeling and the reality. The feeling of belonging comes through caring, cooperation, and trust. The reality of belonging comes through equity and fairness. See, I've been talking about equity, fairness, equality, economic justice, social justice, and cultural as well as spiritual respect for each other. Right? We don't treat them as objects. We treat them as as human, right? So tell me, uh, Nainika, how what else did the study stir up for you?
So, as in the study was, I felt that
What did you
study was,
were you for first of all, my first question would be, were you able to relate to that, not because you're part of the same marginalized group, but could you relate to the study emotionally? Did it stir something within you emotionally? And if so, what?
on a certain level, yes. I think it was
Okay,
the intersectionality of gender. I'm not
right.
homeless, obviously,
No,
but
I understand. I understand that.
as a woman, I understood, and I could feel that they were feeling victimized as they were dehumanized.
Okay.
Even when we are on a day-to-day basis, if we in a government office in India, like how I could feel that the similar kind of situation often crops up even in our day-to-day life. No, I'm going off
Mhm.
topic, but
No,
this
no,
is
no, please,
something
you're
that
not going. This is the reason why I asked you. an
I
off-topic
think
question. This is not off topic. It is very much part of the topic, because if as a participant, participatory action researcher, if you don't have this emotional component inside yourself, this sensitivity, the compassion, this understanding, you cannot do this kind of research. Believe me, your participants will see right through you, and they're not going to have any bias. So please tell me.
so one of the remarks that I felt like it really touched me was that one of the homeless women during a focus group remarked that we are just a number in front of them. We are not humans. They don't see us as humans. We are just a number, the registration
Mm-hmm,
number basically.
mm-hmm,
And only few people at the offices are nice. And even if they are nice, they are not like, they don't really uh, get us. They don't really get our problems.
mm-hmm.
So
So
that was one
tell
of the
me, tell me
aspects what
about your
I
own
felt.
self.
There's a
Tell me about
huge
your
sense
own
of,
self. Have you felt ever that you were in a situation where you felt dehumanized, victimized, scapegoated, or marginalized within the workplace or in society? And how did that make you feel?
um, yeah, like this has happened in a few instances, obviously.
Okay.
This has happened. It might get a bit personal, but
Please, no, no,
like,
please get me. That was the whole idea. I want you to get personal with us and tell us about those situations, because it's important to understand for everybody participating in this that,
like I have also faced abuse as a woman, so I
okay,
could I could relate. Yes, I could relate. When you feel victimized and when you like when you can't
when you're talking about abuse, are you talking about emotional abuse? What kind of abuse are you talking about?
like as in both forms of emotional and physical and some
Okay,
other form.
okay,
So
okay.
yeah, so it
That
has
is
been
very
a hard
nice. And thank
experience.
you. First of all, I want to thank you for being so transparent and open about that. It's not easy for a woman or for a man, for that matter, to talk about emotional, physical, and whatever, whether it's sexual abuse or any other form of abuse. It's not easy at all to talk about that. And unless you as a woman can appreciate that, and not only because you've experienced it, can you appreciate somebody else's experience, but if you're going in as a researcher and you have no compassion, no understanding for them, what are they talking about? Prostitution work, sex work? They're getting all that social welfare checks. Canada is giving them the food stamps. They can go get groceries or whatever. They can live in a homeless shelter. We dismiss it away because we look at them, Nainika, as the other, right?
I think yeah, that is very true.
So when you look at somebody as the other, that they are not part of me. Remember in this, the they're talking about how even the vendors who are taking care of the food service or whatever, they tell them that if you don't have that card or whatever, if you're not legitimate, you can get the food. We're not turning you away, but you'll have to get food that is expired. How would it make you feel
Yeah, it's very
if you, right? Go ahead.
degraded, like below human dignity. Like they're treated not as non-humans. Something like yeah, outgrow. That's what
The
I felt.
outgroup, right? So when you were being marginalized, victimized, oppressed, or whatever, you probably felt some of those same feelings too, right, Nainika?
Yes.
And that is so degrading. It dehumanizes you. It touches you, your deepest core, in a way that is not flattering. It stirs you up. So when you're anytime you're taking any action research, And the reason I brought this in, and this was probably deviating from it a little bit, but we are not off topic. It got a little personal, but I wanted to bring that little personal element into this because a lot of times we keep ourselves aside as though it's only happening to the homeless women. Nothing of that sort has ever happened to me. And if it has happened to me in the past when I was very young, okay, I'm going to keep that aside because it doesn't affect me anymore. Anything that has happened, any experience that has happened to you ever has had an impact on you. It has left a footprint on you. And the footprint can be very, very dark and it can be very deep. Okay. So thank you so much. I really appreciate Nainika for bringing that in. Are we connected, Nainika, on LinkedIn or not? Are you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, yes, sir. I often read up your post. We are connected.
We are connected.
Thank you
Excellent.
so much to you, sir.
No,
You
no,
have been a great
thank you.
facilitator.
No, thank you. Thank you
I
so
enjoy
much.
your LinkedIn post as well.
Thank you so much. I write a lot about everything, including research, including love, life, relationships, romance, whatever, soulmates, but because I'm a phenomenologist at my core, and phenomenologists are deeply emotional people, and I happen to be very emotional as a person. So for me, I value the emotions and feelings. Therefore, I am drawn to this kind of work. So thanks again, Nainika. So let us move on. I want to
Sir,
ask, bring it. Yeah, go ahead.
hello, sir. Komal this side.
Komal, there you go. Tell us.
So actually, I don't know if it's related to the study or not, but when you and Nainika were discussing about, prostitution as a profession, so I feel it's very important for us. I don't know, it's far-fetched or we can be reach to that position or not, but I think it's very important for us to normalize prostitution as a profession also, because I think if we can sell our knowledge and our minds to gain money, so that so can they, like selling your body to earn money, it's absolutely, I think it's their own decisions. And I know some people are forced into such situations because of their circumstances, but few people choose this profession as their own choice. So I think
Yes,
we should stop looking down upon such professions, and it's absolutely fine to choose such a profession. If somebody wants to get into such things or such occupation, some people might stop themselves because of the stigma that is there in the society. But I think if we can sell our minds and our knowledge to gain money, we can people who are into such occupations can also sell their bodies to earn money, and that's absolutely fine. So it is also
right,
about normalizing the occupation and profession that we are choosing.
right. And and you bring in a very important point, Komal. Thank you for speaking up. And the other aspect there is, what about the ones that are using or abusing their bodies, but not to earn money, but to earn a favor, to earn love, somebody's love, right? If I give my body, right? If I give sex to give sex to get love, right? So all of that stuff happens in society. And who am I or who's anybody to judge why somebody's doing it? I cannot be having that lived experience of a prostitute or of a sex worker who has to go for, take for example, the transgender individual, right? And we used to, and I hate to even use the word hijra now because it has such a negative connotation in India. Okay. Growing up, that is the only thing that the hijras have come to somebody's wedding, or a baby's born and they want money and they're shouting and screaming and laughing and all. As a child, I was also conditioned to think that way. But as I grew up and as I got involved in research, and I've helped some doctoral students who were doing studies on transgender motivation, entrepreneurship, and all that. In Pakistan, I helped a student recently graduate. It touched me when I heard the audio clips of those people describing the marginalization and the victimization and the manipulation that happens in society. It was really an eye opener for me.
I
So
think it's also about generalizing the whole thing that they do, because we can't deny the fact that people or transgenders, what we suspected in our childhood, when I was a child, and what uh, all that happened around me, that's a lived experiences of ours as well. So we cannot deny the fact that has not happened. But yes, on our part, we are generalizing that each and every transgender out there is doing the same thing. That is not right on our part.
That is exactly right. So it's like, we stereotype a community, whether it's marginalized homeless women,
Yes. Yes.
transgenders, or anybody else. It's easy for us to stereotype, paint them with the same brush, right? So that we don't have to
Yes, sir.
deal with that reality. Then the reality
Yeah,
comes to
maybe
us
because
that,
they were forced into such situation. They were forced, into doing such things
right.
because of their circumstances.
And would you not be surprised to hear, as you probably already know, I'm sitting 7,000 miles away from India, but I'm so intimately involved in that project now, the transgender project, that I was amazed at how many of them are lifting themselves up
Yes, sir.
from their situation. They're going
Yes, sir.
ahead. I have one of them on my research team. I have a transgender woman. Okay, her name is Sai. Okay, who is incredibly gifted. She has a degree from
Yes, sir.
this. She's going for a PhD. My goodness, when she talked, I was just all ears. I said the articulation, the understanding, the depth, the insight, and all of 27 years, hardly 26 or 27 years old. So if I carried the perception of these people as, oh, they're useless, they're worthless, right? They're a drain on society. We have to take care of them. So we take pity on them if they come to a wedding or come when a child is born and they clap and dance and do all of this, and then sometimes they threaten. So the stereotyping happens when they say, oh, if you don't pay them the money, they will start exposing themselves to you. This is the common stigma that has been, and totally, we've been brainwashed from childhood to think that way. So when we lift ourselves above that and you look at them, there's sometimes some of them are more human than I've ever been. Believe me. When I realized how human, they have the same feelings, they hurt, they also bleed red, right? They're like us. And if we don't embrace that otherness, which we see outside of ourselves, that unless we embrace the otherness within our own selves, we can never get to an appreciation and an understanding and love and respect for a marginalized community. So thank you so much, Komal. Anybody else that wants to share? Please, this is a very sensitive and a very intimate discussion, I realize, but this is all, it's a private discussion. This is not going to be on the net or anything. It's a very, very private meeting that we're having. But unless you bring those parts of yourself into this dialogue, we are not going to be really able to understand what participatory action research is. It's not about going out there and being an outside observer. You're very much a participant. You're part of their situation, part of their problem, part of their solution. So go ahead. Anybody else? I'm just observing the
So I have
silence
a
as I
question.
open this. Yeah, go ahead, Mamta, please.
So how is the sampling done for the participatory action research?
Ah, excellent question. How do we do the sampling? So let's not go too far. Let's talk about this case study. How did they go about doing the sampling? Right? They had decided. I know what the women said, and here how There's something about recruitment and all here. Substance abuse, how they were recruiting the people, safety and security. I think here is some, as a matter of fact, let me go into the table of contents. I think there was something about recruitment that I read here. Okay, their experience solution center for offering methodology. 22.21 focus group guide training of your demographic of participants. I think it should be somewhere here between page 21 and 27. I think I read it. So let me just go to page 21. That's a very good question, because one of the things that we all know is until you have a purposive sample that you have really carefully selected, okay, you're not going to be able to get good data. You're not going to be able to make good interventions. You really have to have the proper, because just getting anybody and everybody, there are plenty of homeless people, but are all of those people willing to talk about their experiences? Are all of the people passionate about what they want to? You want to bring in stakeholders, Mamta, that are passionate about making not only the research, but about making the change, right? Anytime you see change happening, believe me, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, when you see change happening, you will see a group of very passionate people behind that change. You can't see Doug sitting back and relaxed and let others do the work. There are those people will roll up their sleeves and they will make things happen. So let me go to the page 21, where we have that in the, okay, the methodology. So we came in here, we use participatory action research for feminist research. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, remember, Mamta, you were asking what are the theories that are involved, right, in participatory action
Types of
research?
researches, yes.
Correct. So feminism, or the theory of feminism was center stage here. Okay. And I've done some work, not a tremendous amount of work, but I've done some work on feminism. And I happen to be a very strong feminist myself. Okay. I can understand. I don't profess to be the advocate for feminism, that I'm going out there to try to make the change in the world, but I feel for that work. Okay, that I really have, I have deep feelings for that work. So feminist research was at the center stage. Of course, it's participatory action research. The quality research methodology encouraged community engagement and capacity building. So through this research, you're building the capacity of these people to become feel more human, feel more included, right? So homeless groups, okay, now here, Mamta, are the criteria. Homeless and underhoused women were recruited to be inclusion researchers. We call them inclusion researchers for this purpose of this research. And focus group using the following criteria. Here are the criteria, if everybody can see it. Women who are homeless and live on the street or are couch surfers. Women who live on the street are couch surfers, whatever that expression is, that they are. I did not, I have to confess, I did not look up the meaning of couch surfers, how they mean couch surfers. I know they're saying they live on the street or are couch surfers, meaning there has to be, I will look it up. Women who live in shelters, women who live in transitional housing, like they are moving from home to home, okay, or public housing, by the way. This is not some great flats out there, public house, small quarters. Women who live in subsidized housing, women who live in rooming housing or other market rent housing, but are underhoused. So when they're using the expression homeless and underhoused means they do not have enough living quarters, right, to take care of themselves and their families. So they may have been given just a small little place in which they can barely function, but at least they can hide So they wanted to have people with this criteria. So it's very clearly indicated here where they got the sample from, right? Inclusion researchers were trained in how to facilitate a focus group. So they had to be trained on how to do this focus group. Not everybody can do the focus group, all right? Because people that run focus groups have to be very mindful of group dynamics. Because it's one thing to interview a person face to face or even by Zoom, just one on one, because it becomes private, right, between the researcher and the participant. The moment there are 5 or 6 or 7 participants, there's a new kind of anxiety that is hovering in the group. It's called group anxiety. So sometimes, but a participant may be a very quiet kind of a person. Sometimes a participant may be very vocal. Sometimes a participant could be a disruptor, that they want to say something about everything. They can't stop talking. So a group moderator, if you're a moderator of a group, such as this, of a focus group, you have to have the skills to be able to manage that group dynamic in a way that does what? To promote dialogue. You're not promoting a debate. After all, what is your goal? Anybody, what is the goal of a focus group? Come on, don't be shy. What is the goal? What is the purpose? What is the goal? What is the objective of running a focus group?
To bring in maximum points on the table, to make people
Okay.
more and more vocal and sharing about whatever they are facing, so that the most first of all the maximum points, and also the magnitude, the transparency is brought.
Transparency, because there's a element of vicarious learning that is happening. Vicarious learning is learning from others, right? Who are part of the group. So there's a shared dialogue going on. It is not just one-on-one with the researcher and the researched. There are other participants also who are involved. What are some of the other objectives? Come on, guys. What are some of the other objectives of a focus group? You've all heard of focus group. It's not something new. Because unless we understand the value of a focus group in participatory action research, a lot of participatory action researchers run focus groups. You know why? Because a participatory action research is not research between a researcher and one participant. There are usually a number of people involved. So the preferred methodology is a focus group. So what would you think might be
disagreements, the space to bring disagreements? Like,
who is this?
Sir, Nanika.
Hi, Nanika. Yes, go ahead. So disagreements,
Sir,
what
I
is
think
that?
it is also because, so suppose I have a point of view regarding one problem, the problem that is being discussed, the dialogue in the dialogue. And I have a point of view, and somebody, since it's a focus group, it's not only between me and the researcher. The other participant might just not agree or not might have a different point of view, like which is totally opposite, the exact opposite.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah,
So what?
I think that.
So Nanika, what was your point there? What point were you trying to make?
So that the focus group also brings that
Diversity.
like a space.
So you're saying a focus group does not only bring convergences, they also bring divergences.
Yes,
they don't always bring agreements. They don't always bring agreements. They can always bring disagreements also.
Yeah, and it is I think it's an opportunity for the researcher to see this in a safe space.
Beautifully put, beautifully put. So what? So you have brought in, Nainika, something known as safety. What is the value of safety in this kind of research, in this kind of focus group? What is this thing called safety?
Safe,
Why
safe
is
to
it
be
why is
different.
it so why is it so important for people to feel safe with you? What does safe mean to you? You're not because you have a gun to their head, right? What is this thing about safety? Why is it that with some people you feel safe to open up, tell them your life stories, tell them everything about yourself, become vulnerable with them, become sensitive with them, while with others you are fearful, you're doubtful, you're skeptical because you say that, oh my goodness, if I'm going to say something, I don't know whether this person is going to keep it confidential or not. And the next thing you know, it's all over the internet.
Sir,
So what is
trust
this?
issues.
Who's
Sorry,
this?
sorry. Sir,
No, no,
Pragya.
go ahead. Pragya, yes, Pragya, go ahead. Tell me.
Sir, when I am comfortable in sharing my emotions and feelings with somebody, it is
Right.
that time when I have a trust on that person. When
Yes. Trust. Yeah.
yes, sir,
Wh-
and I feel that my privacy is going to be like, I mean, it's not going like they will not make my fun. They will understand me, and
Hmm.
yeah. So
And
if my feelings are understood properly, then I am happy to share my feelings and emotions with that person.
correct. If you feel safe, there's element of trust there. You feel that there's going to be confidentiality, that whatever
Yeah.
being shared here between us is going to be kept confidential between us. It's not going to be shared outside of this setting. That is very important because there's such a thing called a boundary. See, anytime you reveal yourself to somebody, anytime you share sensitive things about yourself to somebody or with someone, you are taking a risk, are you not? You're risking your idea, you're risking something that you've been holding on to for a long time. But now it is no longer yours alone, you've shared it with somebody. And while on one part it feels a little remorseful that things that were part of you have not been shared, on the other hand, it's also liberating. It's redeeming to be able to share those parts of you that we're holding on. So if we talk about this case study, for maybe for years and years, these people, homeless women, were carrying all these feelings inside. And there was nobody that was listening. Even as a matter of fact, in the summary, you'll notice that there was nobody listening for that. And if you go through here, I just wanted to share something with you. Okay, I wanted to talk about, these are their verbatim extracts from the focus groups. Look at the sensitivity with which they have shared this. Do you think they could have shared this if they didn't feel safe with the focus group leader, or if they didn't feel there was a if there wasn't an element of confidentiality and safety there? Because this, their words could be used with a government organization. Oh, she said this. She has a home and she's saying, I don't have a home, I need extra help, right? She's lying. So if an unethical researcher might complain to the welfare department, social welfare, that she was lying. So you have to understand, it's a privilege to be a researcher, and it's a greater privilege to be a participatory action researcher. You're called upon to have that kind of trust, the faith that people want to have. So just look at, it's a miracle to have a home, to own that home, to have a roof over your head. For them, it's a miracle. I live in a subsidized cooperative house. I'm mentally healthy all the time because I don't have to live in fear. is being at peace within oneself, is feeling healthy. So being at peace, the moment she's at peace with herself, that at least she has a home to go to. I mean, we are all so privileged if you think about it. We have a home to go to, a roof over our heads, food, shelter. A lot of these people living on the streets don't have that. But when they are given public housing, they can turn to it and feel safe, feel comforted, feel healthier, both emotionally and physically. Another woman lives in a subsidized housing that is wheelchair accessible. She feels fortunate to have people care about her. So community connections saved her life. The team who treats her gives her a sense of belonging. She has people to talk to regularly. Look, we are all social animals, if you really think about it. We need people around us. We need to be able to share our stories with others. These homeless women have had nobody other than those that want to manipulate them, torture them, victimize them, oppress them, right? And when they start to feel safe, they're able to talk. They're able to bring more of themselves into the dialogue. And if you notice, the the whatever they have shared here is absolutely amazing. The depth and the breadth of the data that came out of that. It was based on that data through I mean, even though this is just a report, so everybody might think that, oh, this is done magically, 1, 2, 3. Probably took months and months and months and months to pour over this data in order to make sense of this data, in order to make the interventions for this. So one of the things that a focus group does is opens out people so people can bear their soul with the group leader, who's also another homeless woman that they can share to. But when I say group leader, it only means that person is steering the conversation, because you have to have somebody who's asking the questions, right? So what did you feel? How did you feel? What kind of experiences did you have? Share your experiences with us, right? So this is an incredibly powerful case study which brings to life a marginalized population. And even though it's in Canada, it could be happening in India, it could be happening in China, it could be happening anywhere. Now in China, you're hearing about all those camps, the internment camps where Muslim women are being tortured, abused, sexually molested. So the human rights problems that are occurring there. We have some of our own share of problems here in the US and of course in India. So if you're going to be doing participatory action research, you will be more than likely in getting involved in a marginalized population. Because there's plenty of other research done on leadership and what's happening within an organization. All that stuff is great. But really, if you're drawn to this kind of work, and the more sensitive the research project, the more careful you have to be about how you work with them. Because if you're working with a lot of uneducated women or men, for that matter, you have to not become the experts at their end, that you're so much more educated than them that they don't even feel comfortable with you. You have to make them feel one of you, make them feel so that they're able to share their deepest emotions with you and feelings with you. Because unless they share their deepest feelings and emotions with you in an actual research project, you're not going to be able to get reliable, good data to work with. So let me, with the time remaining, we have about 10 minutes remaining. I wanted to open the floor up to those that have not spoken, to share what they felt reading this case study or about anything else that they wanted to share. Oh, go ahead, Mamta.
So my question was, when it comes to this research, I mean, you kind of spoken about it being qualitative. However,
Yes.
has it been observed that the same research has been replicated with a proper sample size, or is there a fixed sample size for it, like we have in the parametric research?
No, sample size is something that you have to determine yourself
Hmm.
in consultation with the organization. So let's say they want this specific research done, and they want a research, or the people involved in this research is going to be the head of this department, head of that department, head of that department, or administrative staff of a certain department. So you bring in all those. So you will have to figure out the criteria, because if you want to bring a boss of the department with, I hate to use the word subordinate, let's say a co-worker who's many levels below the boss, that co-worker may not be able to talk openly about some of the things. They may be hesitant. So in order to get really good, reliable, solid data, you really have to create that equity. And that equity has to be also perceived equity, right? So you may say, oh, this is all equitable, no problem, this is all confidential and all that. But hey, if I have my boss sitting there, I might be reluctant to talk about my issues in front of my boss, especially if my issues have to do with some criticism of my boss. I may
Sure.
not share it. So we have to be careful. So how you craft that research, how you create the design of the research, what methodology you use, and then to write, of course, it's beyond the scope of our two sessions to go into in-depth literature review, because literature review is a very solid part of a research study of this nature. What literature you use? Critical theory, literature on feminism, right? So what literature, who were the authors that you drew from? Because there's a lot of authors that write on feminism, right? Which authors did you really um, cite? So they have to be part of the study. So the entire study, if you notice, and at the end of this study, if you notice, there, I think, and what I really liked about this is how elaborately they've broken it up into question number one, prompts on gender, prompts on. So they to creating an interview schedule for the focus groups. What would you say are you things that you contribute to your good health and well-being? Prompts on gender. What is it important to your health and well-being as a woman? Right? Prompts on social determinant. How does education impact on your health? So when you craft, especially in participatory action research, you have to have several prompts. Prompts are, you ask one question and then you have a prompt. So if they're steering away from that, you have to steer them back into, because you wanted to collect good, robust data. You don't want this to just be a conversation about something. It has to be a
Right.
conversation about the phenomena, correct? The phenomena of marginalization, phenomena of homelessness. But not only that, what interventions are going to come out of that? And what do they suggest should be done? See, that is what is so typical about this kind of research. When you're asking those questions, you're not just asking them to reflect on the phenomena by itself. You're saying, okay, so what changes would you like to see, right? How would you like your
Yes, sir.
government to get more involved? How would you like the stakeholders to become more involved within the organization? What kind of help are you seeking? Right. So just know that, and if you notice at the end, it is very nicely done. The objectives of the training components if you read all of that, okay, you will notice that and the demographics of the participants are there, ages 16 to 29, 15, 30 to 49, so forth and so on. Ethno-racial identity, member of visible minority group, Aboriginal, Caucasian, not specified, other, length of time in Canada. So you have to specify all those determinants. How much time have you been homeless? Have you just become homeless 2 days ago? Would that really be the right participant? They may not have a lived experience yet of homelessness or under housing. So things of that nature are very important. So I would encourage you to read this this study in its entirety. And I will also send you, and I promised Samyak that I'll send him the book, the ebook by Paulo Freire. It's called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. He was brilliant Brazilian scientist, social scientist, who did a lot of work with peasants, okay, and got them involved in the process of research and process of social change. He's done some magnificent work, and it's a very easy to read book. It's not heavily uh, dense. So I would definitely recommend that you read portions of that. And if you want to carry this forward into this, and you want my help or my support in any way, we can certainly um, work together on a project. I'd be more than happy to share my expertise, my knowledge, and whatever experiences with you on developing a project. But anybody else wants to add, chip in on this, especially those that have not spoken? Go ahead.
So,
Yes,
so were these participants, the homeless women, also a part of making the questionnaire,
yes, they were a part of the entire project. They're the
right
feedback.
from making the
This
questionnaire,
is the
right?
yes, yes, yes. So these are the questions that they have helped design.
True.
And as you notice in this, they say that they were a part of every stage of the process.
Yes. Yes.
That is what makes this so powerful. If they were only parts, certain parts, and not involved in other parts, what good is really that? You may as well not get them involved in the participatory action
Mm.
research. So I would say that this is a very important aspect to consider when you're doing action research or participatory action research of this nature. It's very critical to have that. Um, and if anybody else doesn't have anything to say, we can wind it up, or I can open it up. Arama,
Yes, sir. So does
okay, what do
anyone
you have
else
to
have?
say? What do you have
No,
to
no.
say?
I'm just saying, does anyone else have any questions? So you can ask, sir, right now.
Yeah, go ahead. This is your chance. Akhila, you've been
Yep.
quietly listening.
Yes,
Go ahead. What questions do you have? What observations do you have?
So while you were discussing about what are the strengths of participating, getting the people participated in a focus group discussion, there was one
Right.
more point that I wanted to make was uh, it also illustrates what is more pressing. Like if I as a researcher come with an idea that okay this issue could be more pressing, but then the
Mhm.
focus group discussion may tell me something else. So no, that may not be so big an issue that I'm thinking as a researcher. It could be something else. So
Right.
how pressing is the issue will be more illustrated by the people who are facing it rather than me as an outsider.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because you as an outsider, I mean, you can be, of course, if you as a researcher will be part of the focus group, you may choose to be part of the group or may not choose to be part of the group. Because if they feel more comfortable just having a conversation between themselves, all homeless women, and they don't want Mamata to be sitting there or Nanika to be sitting there or anybody else to be sitting there, that's totally fine, you know. And because sometimes people are not comfortable having an outsider there. But the key here is you work upfront in getting to know them, so you know they don't consider you an outsider anymore.
True, true.
You're a part of their family. And you create that safety upfront because we don't create that safety as a researcher, Mamta. This PAR goes out the window. You're not going to get enough data or good data to work with. So yes, this is great. Anybody else have anything to add? Stuti, go
Yes, sir,
ahead.
I had a question. Sir,
Yes, go ahead.
when we're talking about this kind of research, would you recommend that it is easier to do it via an organization or with a group as opposed to doing it as an individual researcher?
Wait a minute. Let's back up. What was your question? Is it better to do it as what?
As an individual, or is it more sort of wholesome for this kind of work to do this research as a group or via an organization? Does it require that kind of support, or if as an individual researcher you want to take up this work, is that advisable?
Okay. Very nice question. So if I understand your question, Stuti, what you're asking is, if you as an individual researcher, your Stuti wants to do this research with an organization, is that what you're saying?
With any group, sir, but I'm just trying to understand that as an individual, uh, are the resources that we come with enough to do participatory action research, or is it better to do it with a team of researchers, or do
Okay,
you
okay,
feel that as
okay.
an individual it's also doable?
Look, it has to do with your level of experience and expertise. Okay. And this has got nothing to do with whether you have a bachelor's degree or you have a master's degree or you have a PhD. There are lots of master's degree holders who are excellent researchers,
Right.
right? I would at least have people who at least have a master's degree to work with you because they've attained a certain level of education with you and experiences. So I would involve them. I would, if I wasn't sure of myself, my expertise, I would involve others who have my kind of expertise or who are better experienced than myself to join the team.
Okay.
Because sometimes it's easier when you say to the CEO of a company or to the head of an NGO that I have Mamata, I have Arama, I have Samyak as part of my research team, and Arama has done
Right.
this, and Mamata has done this, and that. So you're more likely to get that project. Otherwise,
Okay.
they'll say, Stuti is coming in. Stuti, okay, bhai, apna resume share karo. And Stuti has only got 3 years of experience,
Right.
right? They may not say anything to you, but they may not feel comfortable with you. So
Yeah.
going in as a team, you ask an excellent question. Going in as a team is perhaps better.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
if I didn't have the kind of experience that I do over the 20, 25 years in research, I would probably not entertain doing a study and being at the head of a study and being the principal investigator of 3 studies at the same time. It would be too much for me to take on. So I have to bring in also, and despite that, I have to bring in other co-researchers, other co-investigators in a collaborative way. Of course,
Right.
my studies are all phenomenological studies. I'm using IPA to study these phenomena. So my approach is different. Right? It's not participatory action research, but you know what? Attending this and being and working and participating in this seminar with you has also given me some terrific ideas, because one of the things we wanted to run were focus groups as part of those studies. So this has given me, from your feedback and your understanding of this, also given me some ideas that I can probably use. So I'm mindful of the time. We've gone about 10 minutes over time. If unless and nobody else wants to share anything, we can wrap it up. But I'm here for a couple of minutes if you want to share something. Go ahead, Mamta. Your hand is up.
Yeah. So this is the final question from my side as of now, and that is, when we publish a participatory action research in the journal,
Yes.
how do we send it?
Yes.
Do we send it in the form of the report that we have here, or do we send it in some other form?
No, 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 no. When you're writing, you're talking about submitting it to a journal article, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Correct? Yeah. No, no, no. Journal article formats are different. This is the report format. This is the format of a, this is an executive report, executive summary that you send to the organization head. They want to look at it. They
Yeah.
see, they don't have the time or the bandwidth to look at all the data that is collected, all the analysis. They just want a summary. What did you find? How
Mm-hmm.
did you
True.
go about it? What was the methodology you used? It's a short, crisp summary. So it is kind of like a journal article. But if I were to be writing this journal article, I would write it in a different way. I would have the
So
abstract, I
is
would
there a
have the
peculiar format for
introduction.
that?
Yes, I would have. And you and I can work together on that. I would have an introduction. I would have an abstract, introduction, chapter. In the chapter one, I would open up the topic, the research question. Then I would have a literature review, right? Then I would have a research design methodology section, short sections, right? Then I would have a data analysis and interpretation section. And finally, a section on findings and future implications. It follows the protocol of a dissertation, a doctoral dissertation or a master's dissertation. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Rama, you wanted to go ahead. Stuti, did you have something to say?
Sir Pragya.
Pragya, go ahead.
Yeah, sir, as you told that we have to follow the dissertation pattern. So
Yeah,
can we follow, sir, can we also follow the APA format?
of course. That is the format we always use. The APA
Oh,
format. See, don't confuse the protocol of that with the APA or APA formatting. When you say formatting, it's different from APA style, right?
okay.
Formatting is a paper formatting, how the paper is formatting, what margins you have, where you have bold titles, where you have center aligned, all of that kind of stuff. But APA style, okay, is
Right.
different. APA style means, what is the style of writing? What do you say in an abstract? What do you say in an introduction? Right? What is the, how do you go from one chapter to the next, to the next, to the next? How do you tie them all together? Things of that nature. So just remember APA style and APA format. They use, people use them interchangeably, but really it's a little different there. Okay. All right.
Okay, sir,
So
thank
Arama,
you.
thank you. So Arama, did you want to wind it up, or Samyak, whoever wants
Yes,
to?
sir. Yes, sir. I think we crossed the time boundary because the sessions were so enlightening and stimulating. So the questions were never ending, and people had endless questions. So anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Anil, for such an enlightening and invigorating 2 day session. I'm sure, I'm hoping that all of you had a great learning experience with the rich body of knowledge and experience, expertise that sir comes from. I'm sure all of you must have benefited immensely from him. And regarding the learning materials and the ebook, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed by the brilliant Brazilian scientist that just spoke about, we shall share it to you with you by tomorrow. We'll just send across an email to you with the ebook and other learning materials. And I'm sure, like,
And
I'm getting messages
yeah,
that yes, sir.
yeah, and also
Yeah,
also
yes, sir.
also what today's session also is being recorded, and it'll go live on a private link. It is not going to be public. None of this is publicly being shared. Okay, it's a very intimate setting between us. whatever we have discussed is remaining public. It is only available to those who are participating in these sessions. It is so Your Dost Academy will share directly with you the link to that recording. Also, yesterday's link to the recording. But I would hope that you don't share that link outside of your own immediate, family or whatever, right? Don't send it out, because then you all have paid to attend this workshop, right? You don't want somebody to say, oh, I got this whole material without having to pay for something, right? Okay. So I want to thank all of you for being so wonderful and so collaborative and so open. And also, I want to thank especially both Komal and Nanika for opening themselves up so sensitively and sharing with so much emotion and feeling what has transpired with them. And hopefully we can continue that conversation. Maybe I can continue them with one-on-one. Maybe they want if they want to keep it private. So again, I've thoroughly enjoyed these 2 days, and there's a depth of material and the breadth of material. There's so much in participatory action research that it's not possible to do it in two 90-minute segments. Okay. So I'm always a little hard pressed. I'm always trying to do this catch up with time that at the session ends and say, oh my goodness, I had to share this and I had to share that. I couldn't share this. I had so many notes that I had here that I could not share. But hopefully we'll continue this learning forward. And I want to especially also thank Akhila Nair for being, she's been a silent moderator for the most part, because this group was small and so she didn't want to intrude. So which is a testament to her emotional connection with the process. Had it been a larger group, then people are raising their hands and somebody wants to talk. So I've had sessions where I've got 135 people there. So thank you, Akila, for being part
Thank
of
you,
this, and
sir.
thank you, Rama, and thank you, Samya, for supporting us in this and for sponsoring this wonderful workshop for us. All right. So you guys take care, and we'll be in touch with you soon. Okay. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
everyone. You shall receive your certificates within a week. Thank you so much for all your
Thank you.
participation. And stay safe, everyone. Stay well. Bye-bye. Good night. Have a good
Good
night. And
night.
sir, you have a good day.
Okay. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
See you. Bye.